Hello, Captain. Since a couple of days you might have heard about the Von der Leyen's plane being targeted by GPS spoofing, and you are probably skeptical about it, especially when looking at the plane's trajectory that doesn't make sense. Well, I got the arrival charts for you, and you'll see every question has an answer. Let's start the video. First, what are we talking about? It's about a Falcon 900LX that flew EU Commission President von der Leyen from Warsaw, Poland to Plovdiv in Bulgaria. Takeoff and cruise were performed without any issues, but things got complicated when approaching the destination airport. At the beginning, the plane was cleared for the RNP approach runway 30, which you see on the screen. The airport is here, and it was planned for the plane to continue through this path and land at the airport. A RNP approach is called a non-precision approach, and it relies only on GPS position. It's a very standard approach in aviation, and everyday pilots all around the world use RNP's approach to land their plane. Let's superimpose the flight radar track file on top of the arrival chart and continue the investigation. Between Papa Delta 600 and Papa Delta 601, the von der Leyen plane reported some incoherence in his GPS reading. This might explain why the plane's trajectory got diverted from its original path. So that brings the first two questions here. First, is it possible to jam a plane's GPS? Yes, and we already saw that on this channel. GPS spoofing may alter the navigation system behavior. For example, this Airbus was at 37,000 feet and got ground proximity warning. Second, was this attack deliberately targeted to von der Leyen plane by the Russians? Well, to answer this question, we need to take a step back and see the whole picture. I will not deep dive into the difference between spoofing and jamming, but all you need to know is that GPS manipulation is not new and has been a thing since the 80s. Nevertheless, this practice became more and more popular since 3 to 4 years. View it as an electronic warfare that is operating in all major conflicts around the world. The Ukraine versus Russian war use it. Israel versus Palestine use it. There are even reports of GPS jamming in the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf. As you can see, GPS attacks are not focused to one and only target. Instead, it's a whole area that is affected by these disruptions. The article that catched my attention was this one from Eurasian Times, where it claims India recorded 465 navigation incident because of Israel's GPS attack. They got the disruption near Pakistan, which, if we look on the map, is very far from Israel and its front line. Now that you know more about GPS attacks, I will let you make your own judgment on whether or not the Russians deliberately targeted von der Leyen's plane. But keep in mind that GPS spoofing or jamming is a thing all around major conflict, and it impacts a whole area, not a single target. Let's get back to the actual flight tracking, and now let's understand why the plane made this weird trajectory. So at this location, the pilot of the von der Leyen's plane doesn't receive proper GPS location. As a result, he asked the air traffic controller for radar vectors. Radar vectors means the pilot wants the controller to give him heading and altitude in order to align with the runway. No big deal here. This practice is common in the aviation industry. Unfortunately, the air traffic controller is unable to provide him with radar vectors, probably because he doesn't have a radar coverage, or his radar is broken, we don't know yet. As a result, the controller instructs the airplane to change the approach from RNP to a ILS Whiskey approach, which doesn't need GPS, and rely only with the airport's antennas on the ground. It's safer in that situation, and it's logical as the plane can't rely on its GPS. Let's change the chart. Here is the ILS Whiskey approach, and as you can see, the second part of the trajectory now makes sense. First, he need to join the Papa Delta Victor VOR at 7,000 feet, then make a loop and leave the VOR with a heading of 109 while descending to 5,000 feet. At 15 miles from the beacon, the plane takes a right turn in order to align with the runway and intercept the glide slope at 3,800 feet. He then catches the ILS and land the plane safely. So what can we learn from that incident? First, GPS attacks are common near conflict areas, and it affects any navigation systems available, from planes to boat to civilian iPhone. Second, as these attacks covers a large area, it's hard to find a suspect. But Bulgaria is not very far from what is happening on the war front in Ukraine. so we can have a rough idea about the origin of these interferences. Third, the aviation industry still maintains older navigation technologies like VOR and NDBs. Even though these systems tend to disappear, they are the biggest rampart against modern attacks, and they were a key to success during this incident. Fourth, pilots and air traffic controller handled the incident very well, and from what we have seen with the approach chart, it was not more than an approach change, which pilots performs every day all around the world. And fifth, always diversify your source of informations and try to get different viewpoints on specific subjects. There was no 1-hour flight delay because of this incident. The plane just took off 1 hour late and the information is public. Pilots didn't have to relearn how to fly the airplane with paper charts like we heard from some medias. They already know how to do these old-era approaches. It's part of their training. That concludes my take on the Von der Leyen's airplane incident, and I hope this has clarified the topic for you. I know it's different from the tutorial series, so let me know what you think of this format. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more content. Happy landings, Captain.